Okay, so the topic is basically about invisible, intangible, bottom of the DevOps iceberg. You know what's iceberg, right? So we'll come to that. So far we looked at a lot of tools, processes, technologies. This is a simple diagram which depicts the define, develop, and operate, the three main aspects in DevOps. And we covered a lot of process and technology aspects. So I would like to focus more on the people aspects in this session. And I would like to do that through a metaphor, which is the iceberg. You know about iceberg, right? It's about 20, or rather 10% of iceberg is visible, and 90% of the iceberg is submerged, and it's not so visible. And what moves the iceberg? What moves the iceberg? Current, right? I mean, if you are not aware from an outsider, we may think that wind is blowing this way, but the iceberg is moving this way. What's happening? So iceberg is essentially moving because of undercurrents, which are not so visible, not so tangible. What about what makes DevOps successful? There are some hard aspects, there are some soft aspects, right? What are some of the hard aspects? We talked about a lot of them: processes, ceremonies, artifacts, tools, all these, which are more tangible, more visible. You can deal with much more, explicitly. What are some of those bottom of the iceberg in DevOps? The soft aspects? Many of them. The values, principles, communication, shared vision in the team, motivation level of people, or the engagement level of people, self-organizing teams, cross-functional collaboration. These are all really the intangible, invisible bottom of the DevOps iceberg. And this is the one which really moves this iceberg. If you are not aware, you may be trying to deal with on the surface, but you may miss the iceberg, not the boat. Right? So the essential challenge in DevOps is the horizontal integration. The major challenge of DevOps is the horizontal integration, not just at the team level, at every level in the organization. So here I depicted three levels, the team level and a middle management and a kind of a senior leadership. Every level, the cross integration is the key. It cannot be just at the team level and say that, no, you won't cross-functionally integrate. Can you help? So we can't say that we will look at only at the team level cross-functional integration, not at management or the leadership level. Still, it doesn't happen then. So if you look at, organizations are designed vertically, but the work flows horizontally, right? And the customers experience the organization horizontally. You as consumers look at any of the service providers, be it telecom or a bank or even a restaurant. Your requirements go through multiple handoffs inside that organization, and many times you see disjoints, right? So you actually look at an organization in a horizontally as a customer. So the horizontal integration is the key. That's the major challenge. So from a soft aspects perspective, I would like to pick up these three elements, which is the self-organizing teams, then the cross-functional collaboration, and servant leadership. If you address these three dimensions, probably you will cover 80% of that bottom of the iceberg. So I will take each one of that. So cross-functional collaboration. When there is no cross-functional collaboration, people at the back may not hear what these two guys are talking about. So they are essentially saying, thank God, whole is not on our side. Right? I guess some people may be trying to map who is dev here, who is ops here. How many people are here from IT, infrastructure and operations? Raise hand. Okay, little bit. I think predominantly it looks like the dev and QA and the other dimensions. You're right. So the challenge of horizontal integration is basically how to make everybody see the full elephant. I think in morning we saw an African elephant. This is an Indian elephant. So everybody is looking at their part of the whole problem and then think that this is it, and we try to optimize that piece. So when you do local optimization, there will be a system dysfunction. This systems thinking, part. A good example is actually Bangalore traffic. Everybody wants to optimize their own movement, and they create gridlocks, right? System dysfunction. So how do we make the people to see the full elephant? There are many ways. People talked about move, dev people to ops side to observe and vice versa, and co-locate, and dev do the ops work, etc. So I will share some small tip which can be used to bring them together in a very quick way, which is what we call as seeing the full elephant kind of an exercise. So essentially what you do is you bring all those cross-functional members together and do a kind of a session. So in that session, what you essentially do is you create what you call as a scaffolding. You know what scaffolding? While constructing a building, they put the frames first, right? The wooden or the metal frame, and through which they actually build the building. So that's called scaffolding. So you create a scaffolding. In this, the horizontal or the columns that you see are kind of a major steps or a process flows. And the verticals are the various different cross-functional teams. So you create that scaffolding and do this exercise where there are 3 passes in this. The first pass is called a green pass, where you ask everybody to write what they are doing from each of their functions with respect to these complete different stages. This is an end-to-end view, right? So they write all that green sheets, and then there is a readout. So everybody comes to know about who is doing. The second pass is the red or the amber pass, where now everybody writes on the other team what they expect, what is not going well, that aspects in that red pass. And then there is a readout. So then people come to know, oh my God, I didn't know that somebody is expecting something from me like this, right? So actually these 2 passes bring them to look at the whole elephant together. We have seen through this exercise, it takes about half a day or 1 day based on the size or the complexity of this cross-functional teams. So within that, they start looking at why I should be doing something else, something more, which the other function depends on, the previous and the next. So it creates empathy. I didn't know why the other person was asking like this until today. We talked about empathy. Somebody talked about empathy yesterday, right? So the third pass is yellow, which is based on these discussions, every function takes up what are the action items that I should go and now work on. And then there is a readout again. So now, by these 3 rounds, everybody is kind of onto the same page about this full elephant and how to deal with this full elephant. You can try it. It's a simple exercise, but it's very powerful that we have found. So going further, cross-functional collaboration, which is a critical success factor. Typically, again, as we saw, organizations are structured vertically. As you see here, there are many tribes, right? This is essentially coming from kind of an industrial era thinking, the shop floor thinking. A machine makes a transformation, hands it over to next one, that makes some more transformation, hands it over to next one. So it's coming from that thinking. But in reality, software development doesn't happen that way, right? All the related functions have to come together to create a value. No single function create a business value. So we need to change the configuration from this way to this way. So how do you structure the teams then? Essentially, this is a matrix, right? We have functional organizations, and for a solution or a product, we need teams coming together from those cross functions. Which should be predominant? We have seen some of the mature organizations moving towards more stable teams in the second part, like this, and more of a center of excellence on the left side. For example, testing is not a department. Testing is part of this product team or a solutions team, but they belong to a center of excellence, because that's also an important dimension for capability development, career paths, competency development, sharing good practices, etc. Right? But moving towards more of the cross-functional stable teams. Especially we see this challenge in service organizations because there is a heavy focus on utilization, people are shuffled. Whereas in product companies or some of the GICs, we see much more moving towards this stable product or solution units. So how do you make this happen? It's a sandwich approach. There are some top-down approach to be taken in the organization, some bottom-up. So the top-down, enablement to work in cross-functional teams, this enablement has to come from top-down. Goal alignment across functions, strategy, roadmaps, priorities. This is another important point. Again, because we are structured vertically, the goals flow from top to down, and tests will have separate goals, dev will have separate, IT ops will have separate. Instead of that, if you now look at cross-functionally, what should be the common goal? So that's the goal alignment. Common protocols, processes and tools across, we have discussed enough of that. And all these are kind of a push factors. They are all top-down. At the same time, there is a need for the pull factor, which is coming from the teams themselves, self-organizing cross-functional teams. Again, if these teams themselves are not pulling this, even though there is a push happening, there is not good enough cross-functional collaboration happening. So both are required in an organization. Okay, let me now move on to the second part, which is self-organizing teams. So this is when teams are not self-organizing. Look at the expressions here. Do you see, are they self-organizing teams? See, managers are fighting here, and teams are saying, we have done our work. Whatever was told to us, we have done it. If they are self-organizing, they would have figured it out much earlier, right? So what makes self-organizing teams? There are some internal factors within the team, and there are some external factors which are from the outside of the team. What are those internal factors? Only some of them here. Self-managed individuals, taking responsibility. Again, these are statements, but we can't do that just by telling. We need to take them to kind of an experience and how to take responsibility. Because we talk about responsibility is not given, responsibility is taken, right? But how do we change that shift in thinking in the people? Mutual respect in team members, trust. Again, another big statement. How do you build trust and relationships? Have you heard of another metaphor called white spaces? See, this another metaphor which talks about in a white sheet of paper, it communicates nothing, right? There is no information. And when you put text, that's an information. But just because text communicates information, if you fill up the whole sheet with text, what happens? You can't even decipher anything out of that, right? This is difference between task orientation and between informal interactions with people. We see a lot of managers become extremely task oriented because they want to achieve something output. And in that process, actually they miss out a lot of this people, team building, relationship building, trust building. In fact, the trust building happens a lot more in an informal setting, and then you can use that in the work context. So those are called white spaces. That means hanging around, they are very important actually. Sometimes we think it's a waste of time. That's where the trust gets built. And trust is something like a savings account. You have to deposit first before you can withdraw. And you can't build trust at crisis. Typically in crisis, trust will break more. That means you have to do it upfront. So these white spaces are important investments. Appreciating differences and diversity. Again, this is bringing together and making them aware of, just like that, seeing the full elephant helps them to develop some of these. What are some of the external factors from outside of the team? Facilitative leadership, then command control leadership. I'll talk a little bit more about that. The key part in that is asking, then telling. In fact, this is an extremely important point. We see a lot of managers, especially who have been more individual contributors, very successful. It's very hard for them to change to asking because they are so much thinking about solutions and ideas by themselves. So the more they can ask, the other members take ownership. This is a very powerful thing. When I make a statement, it belongs to me. It doesn't belong to you, right? Instead, I ask a question and then you respond. That response belongs to you. It doesn't belong to me. Isn't it? How do you feel if I criticize that response, what you made? You feel hurt. I didn't criticize you. I just criticized your response. But still, you take it as if I'm criticizing you. Look at the level of ownership. We attach as if it's my baby. This is a great way to build ownership. Asking than telling. I would say a good thumb rule for managers, 70% asking, 30% telling. Otherwise, you are not a facilitative leader, you are not building ownership and building self-organizing teams. Empowerment of team. Again, after, how do you support? Many times we see the empowerment is like a pendulum. People think that I'm very hands-off. I'm not even telling them anything. I'm not going and checking anything. That's not empowerment. Hands-off is not empowerment. It's another extreme of the pendulum. One extreme of the pendulum is micromanagement. Micromanagement and hands-off are two extremes of this pendulum. Empowerment is a balance in between, which is you have to moderate that differently with different people because some individuals need a lot more closer attention. Some individuals need a little bit more hands-off. So you have to play with that. So leaders have to play different interface with different individuals. Facilitating shared vision in the team. Okay, I'll skip some of them in the interest of time. Important point is team rewards and recognitions. Again, this is very important because we talk about all these things and then go back to our appraisal system, which is an individual oriented. Then we have a lot of recognitions and rewards, which actually glorify firefighting and heroics. Even the statements in that recitals are so about firefighting. There was this big fire, this person quenched that fire, great. And we are talking about all team-related things here. So how can this behavior change then? Right? This is an important point about recognizing and rewarding team behaviors. So making of self-organizing teams, command control to self-organizing, letting go by managers and taking up by team should happen synchronously. This is a big challenge we see. Sometimes managers want to give up, but the teams don't take up, so it falls through the crack. Then manager feels, oh my God, I'm held responsible at the end, so let me take back the control. Sometimes teams want to say, I will take up, but the manager is not letting go. So this has to happen in a synchronous way. When teams become self-organizing, managers need new job. This is another big challenge we see. What is the role of middle management in a DevOps or Agile when maturity comes? What is the role of middle management? This is a big question that's coming up actually. They need to take up a new role, coaching, mentoring, developing people, strategic or organizational initiatives, improvements, enterprise agility. There are many, many new needs actually, but it has to be consciously thought through. Otherwise, they can sabotage consciously or sometimes unconsciously, right? So last part, servant leadership. This is an antithesis. Sometimes managers don't know how to do it, but they want it, intent is good, but they don't know, they will say, go and be self-organized. That doesn't work, right? You can't hold a gun and say. So few things on the leadership. Command control to facilitative leadership. This whole command control really has come from, again, industrial era thinking. It is well illustrated by, Henry Ford's statement. He made a statement, I read it in somewhere. He asked something like, when I need 10 heads, other way. When I need 20 hands, why am I getting 10 heads also along with that? Do you see? Why am I getting these 10 heads when I need just 20 hands? That means top thinks, bottom does. That was the mindset. So from there, now more intelligence exists at the bottom of the organizations. How do we leverage that? That has to be facilitative way only. And facilitative way is 70% asking, 30% telling. Change in governance and measurements. This is another big change required in the senior leadership. Without this, actually teams may be trying to do DevOps, Agile, everything, but this management asking the same old questions. What about that metrics, schedule variance and effort variance or defect density? Or what about the way of reviewing, the way of asking questions? Unless these governance and measurements change, again, things will not change. Structural changes, talked about that, from a silo-based to a stable product or solution teams. Next one is change in people practices. Again, talked about that. Performance management systems, reward and recognitions. This is where leadership or the management has to play a significant role, without which you can't expect just the teams to change. So the leadership can make or break self-organizing teams and cross-functional collaboration. Either they can make or break, actually. But the challenge is, many times we have seen that because leadership are the ones who engage us, and they say, go and fix our team. I'm okay, go and fix our team. But there is a big change required even in leadership. So this is about then mindset change, thinking change, then behavior change, then usage of practices, tools in the right spirit, which comes to the more the visible part. So you see the DevOps iceberg, and over a period, sustained way, this makes the culture change. But why it's so difficult is because of this. We are all driven by our experiences, which drives our beliefs, values, principles, based on which we do the actions and results. But typically, we see only this part, actions and results. And management actually asks questions only about that. Just to give an example, we touch a fire, it's an experience, and then we create a belief, oh, fire burns, and then we have values, don't touch fire, right? And the principles associated like that. And then our actions, results, drive based on that. Similarly, from a management perspective, they say, if I don't shout at people, probably they won't work. Or if I'm not monitoring them, they will do something else. Those are all kind of beliefs based on certain experiences. And if you don't change this, you will continue to do this, because you will get this result which reinforces this. This is about learn and adopt. For example, typically trying to do a big bang of Agile or DevOps can actually fail, because without changing this, you are directly trying to see here, and you won't get that result immediately, and it reinforces your belief, saying that, see, I told you it doesn't work. So quick learn and adopt cycles, the prototyping or the pilot runs, which actually give you a different result and drive your experiences to change. There is something called cold fire. You might have done some experiments in the school, right? I don't remember the name of that chemical. It's a blue flame, but even if you touch, it doesn't burn. But we don't have that experience. Everything we say, fire will burn, because it's hard-coded experience. Only when you change that, you will start thinking your paradigm, change the paradigm. So I conclude with this, saying that mindset is greater than tool set. It's like you may have a great hammer. If you hit it on a glass, it has a very wrong effect. If you hit it on a nail, it has a very good effect. And it depends on the mindset. And greater the tool, greater the mindset required. Like nuclear power, Either you can light up a city or burn down a city. Only shift is the mind shift, right? So while we value the item on the right, we value the item on the left more. Remember something? Manifesto. So with that, I rest my case here.
The applause says it was a very, very interesting session. So if you have any questions, that means everyone understood, no questions. Any questions? One more time.
How many are you here? Raise hand. I just wanted to check you are physically here or mentally also here. Okay. Thank you. I'll be available if you have any questions.
Thank you. With that, requesting Ms. Pavitra from TCS to kindly come on stage and present a memento. Say thank you to our speaker. Let's welcome the most beautiful lady, Pavitra, on stage.